Get ready. The DE Talk podcast starts now. Insightful conversations and dialogue helping you put the human factor back in HR.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DE Talk podcast. I'm Shannon Offord, and I lead partnerships here at Direct Employers. Direct Employers and OutSolve support federal contractors, both in different capacities. The E from a VEVRA job listing requirement and outreach standpoint, and for OutSolve, an affirmative action and EEO perspective. The two tie together in so many ways, which is why our solutions complement each other so very well. Today, I welcome Momolu Cooper, OutSolve's Director of Operations and Team Lead, to the DE Talk podcast, where we'll discuss more on the importance of applicant tracking and record retention. I hear you go by Cooper. Is it cool? Is it okay if I call you Cooper?
Cooper, Coop, Momolu, as long as you call me, we're good.
I like that. Let's start here. Cooper, let's talk a little bit about you before we get started. I hear you went to the Citadel. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Citadel, Military College of South Carolina. I would say it was humbling. You go from a high school hero to a college zero in 5 seconds. But it actually helped. I would say that was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life because it helped shape me to where I am today, just from being in the South and being exposed to a lot of hateful people in certain parts of the city. So learned a lot coming from New York.
Would you do it again?
Oh, I did really well. Wound up being within the top tier leadership when I graduated, and
nice.
When I went there, it was actually they were assimilating women for the first time since 1842. So while I was there, I got the tremendous opportunity to get trained through Harvard as a small group facilitator, conflict management. That we helped write their sexual harassment policy, but in my role, my senior year, I got to implement all of those policies and help with the integration. And since I've graduated, you become a donor and been a part of their leadership and changing that process, and all the stuff that I went through that needed to be changed, I came back and volunteered to make those changes. So it's been a humbling and also best experience of my life.
Very cool. I was almost a VMI guy, so being from the North and trying to go to Virginia at that time, I wasn't quite sure I wanted to do that, so I kind of switched past last minute, but that's awesome with the Citadel. That's obviously a very good school, and the fact that you were able to make change there is pretty cool. So
you have to leave it better than you found it.
That's the way you're supposed to do things. I'm always curious how people got on their career paths, kind of how they got to where they are today. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did you find your way to OutSolve and get in the affirmative action and compliance space?
First, I'll just say I've had by far the best career and life post-college. Wanted to serve, so I did some work with law enforcement. Then I became a police environmental response unit, and then all of a sudden, I was able to identify chemicals that weren't supposed to be in certain areas and develop a process to remove them. And then 9/11 hit, and my career just changed. I became a weapon of mass destruction hazmat technician first, then an incident commander. And then later on, while doing all this, I wound up transitioning into, because you learn how to write really good reports, and you also learn how to investigate certain things, because, I'm taking apart meth labs, and everywhere else on the East Coast, I became a homicide detective, violent crimes, and the whole while doing all of that, in my spare time, I was volunteering and learning with a local company here in Charleston, but they were, big footprint, doing the same thing that OutSolve was doing in developing affirmative action programs, and came on board in 2008, and fortunate, and we got acquired and merged with OutSolve just 2 years ago, and this is where I'm at now.
Right. So I know you were with Hudson Man prior, right? That's kind of how you got to OutSolve with the whole acquisition.
Yeah, it was kind of funny though because we should have merged and many years ago. We were like two high school kids dating or trying to date, and we keep passing each other in the hallway, and
Hmm.
we never really spoke to each other, but we looked at each other, but we knew we should have been together. And then finally, when it happened, it was like, why did we wait so long to do this? So it's been an awesome journey.
I was just down at OutSolve's headquarters earlier this week, and
Hey,
people love you there. Like you're like famous there.
I did not know that, but
You are.
they're a good, like I said, best thing that ever happened. Uh, to be with a group of people that not only encourages you, but they call you out. They hold you accountable. They make you better because like it's how a team should be. No one should be able to outshine the other, but we all come together. And it's been great. I've learned more in the last 2 years than I did, at 6 years at Hudson Med, just on team developing and so much more. It's a great company. It's a unicorn that I can't believe exists.
They spoke very highly of you on a couple of occasions while we were there. We spent about 5 hours with Jeremy, and your name popped up several times. So
Good to know.
I was definitely looking forward to spending some time with you today, just based on those conversations. Um,
Awesome.
so let's jump into a little bit more about what we're here to really discuss today, really about record keeping and applicant tracking system. So maintaining compliance is obviously very crucial to keeping federal contracts in place and avoiding any conciliation agreements during an audit. Obviously, a big part of that is the applicant tracking system. What are the key components of an effective applicant tracking system for ensuring OFCCP compliance?
Shannon, if you had asked me this probably 2, 3 years ago, I would say you need something robust. You need something that everyone can access, and you need something that just integrates with so many other parts of your business. But going through these audits in the last 2 years, I would say for an effective applicant tracking system, you need something to track every step of that candidate from applying to the position, every little thing that they do from interviewing, from screening, and to the point that they even get an offer or hired. You have to have a system that can track every part of that. Because in a review, and what we're seeing right now, they're literally asking for your applicants for the last 3 years, and they want to know why you didn't hire a certain person, and tell us the steps from application to hire or not hire per requisition. So that would be the first thing, definitely being able to track every step. And I think the second thing rings true, something that can be integrated with your HRIS. If I hire someone, I should be able to literally just transfer those records, their requisition, being able to identify where they were hired in the process, but something that's easy and that works well with both systems, that they can talk to each other.
Perfect. How can a business ensure their ATS is properly capturing all the necessary data that the OFCCP is really looking for? Or is that even, something that's available at this point?
So I will say, you don't know what you don't know. So figure it out and learn and learn how it's done. I would recommend, and I've done this with several clients when we do mock audits. I would literally tell them, go online and apply for a job. Apply for the job you want, and apply through 2 or 3 different avenues. So apply on an iPad, or apply on some type of tablet. Apply on your phone, and then apply for the position via a regular laptop computer. People forget, COVID happened, and we went from a world of sitting at a desk to, hey, everything's on the phone, everything's mobile. So I would recommend you apply for that job, fill out everything and so forth, but then track, pull reports to see Did you fill this out? Did it capture something? And go through every part of the process. At least you will have some type of familiarity because you applied to that process, you interviewed, and track to see whether or not hiring managers are listing certain things based on interviews, but challenge your process at least once a year. I can't tell you how many times individuals found out that, going through their applicant tracking system, they weren't capturing the self-ID if people applied on tablets because the pop-up window didn't open up. They wound up integrating things in their system. So you don't know what you don't know. So I think it's time for you to figure out what it is that you need to know.
I think that's really good advice, especially now with, like you mentioned, so many people are using a phone to apply to jobs or using a tablet, and the old desktop really is kind of, for the most part, gone away. And that's been something that most companies have focused on for so long, and they really need to kind of change that thought process to worrying about how, candidates can apply, on a mobile device. What are some of the common pitfalls and mistakes companies make in applicant tracking that could lead to non-compliance?
I will be as blunt as I can be.
You can be blunt.
not holding our hiring managers to the same standards that we hold our recruiters. And what I mean by that is when it comes to dispositioning, our hiring managers, and this is what I'm seeing in audit. So I'm not putting anyone out there, but our hiring managers don't have to fill out all the things. We try to make things easier for them. But in a review, I can tell you, Shannon, looking at when the candidate was first screened, applied, every field was filled out. But when it gets to the point after the interview, there's no dispositions as to why you didn't hire a qualified candidate. And when you're in a review as an auditor, this is where all those remedies come in. This is where you're going to get fined, because you need to imagine, Shannon, 3 years ago, there's an applicant that applied that was qualified, and you've probably made 1,000 hires since that period. And now you have to explain to the OFCCP why you did not hire a qualified candidate that made it to interview. And the reason is simple, because you didn't have disposition. So dispositioning and holding our managers to the same standards we hold our recruiters, and filling out every form has been a downfall for a lot of organizations and reviews, because they don't maintain those standards.
As far as obviously with diversity and inclusion being something that a lot of companies are focusing on right now, how can an ATS really help companies be more inclusive?
You think on that all yourself, Shannon? Wow, that's really.
One thing I could, just think off the top of my head. I mean, a lot of the ATSs, partner with, different diverse organizations and can actually help facilitate getting your jobs out to more places. So that's one thing. But, I was just curious as to, maybe some of your thoughts around, around it as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and a lot of people don't utilize their applicant tracking system as a management tool that can get them out of compliance, and they should be. I will tell you, looking at an applicant flow log, imagine, just imagine, you pull these reports of all your applicants, all the candidates that had applied, and all the ones that wound up getting hired. You just pull that out, and you run a simple adverse impact analysis to see, okay, what was the rate of selection for a certain group of people compared to another group. That actually helps the process. We had one client, we started to look through their applicant tracking. We pulled all their process because the recruiters were doing such a great job with their outreach and job postings that on the front end, there was this large, and I'm not going to say the name of the client, so if I say it, please block that out. But they would get a large pool of just a diverse pool of candidates. And what was amazing about that is that the percentage of the candidates that were applying matched the percentage of the demographical makeup in the areas that they served. So it was amazing. They had partnership with churches. I mean, just you name it. these recruiters were, just ambassadors for the organization. Mm-hmm. What happened, however, and we saw this, when the candidates would apply, for some reason, the people that got hired did not represent the group that were coming in, not even by a percentage. And so we started to look through the applicant tracking process, and just from that applicant tracking process, we found that there was a block. And that block came from 2 or 3 different managers. So we started to talk to those managers, it's like, explain what happened. And one of the managers said, well, I respect people that can speak well. So I implemented my own little test here, for individuals to, if they can't pass that test, they're not making it past the process. So being an English professor in his past life, he decided he was going to implement a English test. And someone being raised in a different part of the country, now working in a place where that population didn't represent where he was raised, and started putting, if you didn't use were correctly or was or so forth, you weren't even going to make it through the process. So just from that, imagine how much the company saved. And because we had those applicants, the company took a proactive approach and went back and started to contact those individuals again to provide them opportunities and see if they were interested in any other future position. And as a result, because they clicked it, whenever a job would come up, they would publish those jobs in their email. So you can do really great things to influence change at an organization from the bottom entry level to the top by fully using your applicant tracking as a management tool.
Well, I think it was very good that they were able to pull that information and you guys asked the right questions to go back and make sure that, that got remedied. Obviously, hiring managers adding their own tests like that.
Yeah,
really not allowable. Yeah. So when it comes to record keeping and retention, contractors again have specific requirements to maintain compliance. What are the specific record keeping retention requirements under OFCCP regulations?
So I would say for applicant tracking, fairly simple, but most people don't even realize that. So imagine you have 1,000 people apply for a job. If you don't look at a single application, there's no record keeping obligation at all. 1,000 people can apply. You don't look at near one, there's no record keeping. The second you look, and the OFCCP regards that as you considered a candidate, but the second you look at that resume or application, you now have a 3-year record keeping obligation of those records. Now, they may not make it on the applicant tracking for an affirmative action program, but dispositions of your candidates are by far, especially going through these reviews, are things that you need to keep. And when you're looking at your employment records, if someone was promoted or anything of that effect, the individuals, if it was competitive, you need to keep some type of tracking log of those that you compared for that selection. For termination, something as simple as involuntary versus voluntary separations is a good designation, but trying to get a reason from the candidate holds his weight every time in a review. If someone was separated from the organization involuntarily due to performance issues, then you better make sure you have the last 3 performance evaluations to document why that individual separated. And at the end of the day, I would just tell you, anything that affects or influences an employee's employment at an organization, retain those records for 3 years.
That's really good to know. I think a lot of people get confused as to that because I think some people think it's 2 or whatever, or 10, or, I think, knowing that they don't have to keep them for eternity is good. So,
yes.
Now, what strategies can businesses implement to ensure they are retaining records properly and securely?
That securely thing is huge. A lot of people don't realize this, but you think on HIPAA and you got to keep medical records private and so forth. But they don't realize, and I would just stress this for a little bit. If someone self-identifies as a veteran, well, if one of those categories that you're not capturing is a disabled veteran, and you put that in their personnel file that a manager or someone else can access, well, you're exposing a disability that's private information. Another piece would be, if someone identifies as having a disability, and not keeping those records separate has been a major piece of that. So I will just tell, as you're going through these, audit your processes. Go in and see where these records are. But always audit your processes. Make sure you're capturing information. Pull down a basic itemized listing from the OFCCP website that can show you the components of an audit. Or reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to say, okay, if your personnel processes, your policies, training records, can I provide all this information in a review? And what is it, that information, especially when it comes to compensation? Shannon, believe it or not, the OFCCP is asking for a snapshot of your compensation last year and this year. And what we're learning is a lot of HRIS, they can't give you a snapshot in time of where their salary or what their salary actually was at that time. So January 1st, 2022, we need to know their salary. What was their salary that day? And so they have to go through all these records. So being able to fortify your systems and do some just basic housekeeping checks can definitely help you in a compliance piece.
Do you see that some companies are still doing some of that by paper at all, or no?
Yes. A lot of our it's sad. One of my, and I'm not going to say their names, but a client that I had since 2009. They went from 120 employees when they came on board to us about 6,000.
Wow!
And they're a major federal contractor, been a really big part of our processes here. And when I say they do what they need to do, trust me, it already got done. But a lot of their on-sites, because they did a lot of stuff for the military and so forth, they just kept documentation. They didn't, someone filled out a form, they put it there and so forth. Well, the person that was the HR manager in 2009 became the chief HR at the organization. Here's the craziness, Shannon. She passed away, unfortunately, last year. The client got an audit 2 months later.
Ooh.
And the documentation to explain certain salaries, to explain so many things. They learned that she just made anything happen because, she had requested a robust applicant tracking system and a host of other stuff, and they never provided it. And that's the beauty about HR people. They just make things happen. So she was able to not only organize everything, but it was in her head. And so when she left, a group of people left because they're like, she took care of everything. I don't know if I can go and tell her I need this, and we would get it, and no one knew. So if you're having it on paper, I will tell you, begin to scan it into folders, into secured servers, and make sure your manager knows how to access those files and organize it, because no one, a company will go on beyond, unfortunately, should you leave this world, the company will go on. Right. Or should you win the lottery, the company will go on without you. So make sure that continuity of operations stay in place.
Yeah, I always wonder about, companies who still are using paper because, obviously I get the opportunity to talk to some, and I'm like, you're still doing it that way? I mean,
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's scary. If you can provide one key piece of advice for federal contractors in regards to applicant tracking and record keeping, what would it be?
That's an easy one. If it's not in writing, it never happened. In the absence of documentation, the assumption by the OFCCP is that you're guilty of some form of discrimination. So if it's not in writing, it never happened. If you spoke to an outreach source on the phone and you guys have a great relationship, you went to lunch and blah, 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 but you never followed up with an email and say it was a great meeting for you for lunch today as we discussed blah, 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 and you don't have that documented somewhere and you tell the OFCCP auditor, oh yeah, I have, listen, the person that does our outreach, that's my nephew. They married my daughter and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's craziness that I've seen companies get a conciliatory agreement for outreach because they didn't have it in writing, even though it was obvious that they had a good call them. And they're like, no, the burden's on you. So in the absence of documentation, the assumption is that you're guilty.
Yep, that is correct. It's almost like, when you're, you don't want that in writing. You call them, call a person and have that conversation, and you don't want it documented. So
you better get a folder or an Excel spreadsheet going of all your outreach sources, because that's hurting so many people. Good companies, having to hire extra people just to fulfill their outreach obligations that they were already doing, but now They have to document.
That's a very good answer. I definitely appreciate that, and that would, ironically, that would be my advice as well. So, one thing we like to do on the podcast is kind of close things with rapid fire questions, just some fun questions, just to have people get to know you a little bit better. 4 or 5 questions and just fun. So, best career advice you ever received?
Keep your mouth shut. No one cares what goes on in your personal life. They care that you're there to be for them when they need you.
That's very good advice. Phone call or text?
Depends on the day. I prefer a phone call.
Outside of the Citadel, what's your favorite college football team?
Whew. College? I'm in the South. I got to say Gamecocks.
All right, that's fair. I'll go with that. Good environment down there.
It's all about the tailgates.
Yeah. Does anyone even go to the game down there? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know who really goes to the game. I actually had a season pass and did the parking next to the game for probably 6 years, and my tickets would just be on the tent and people can take it and go in. But I probably went to 1 game in 6 years.
Oh wow!
Just tailgating. You can hear it outside.
Yeah, you can tell by who's screaming, who's cheering at that point. You can tell.
100%.
Which life moment would you most like a do-over?
Whew. A do-over. I would say playing in a golf tournament. It was a par 3, and the ball came within a hair of dropping in that hole. And I just picked it up, and I tapped it in. I was upset. But I should have just shook in the ground, and, that would have been awesome.
Got a nice breeze.
That would have been a boat right there, So, that would be a do-over.
Oh, that's perfect. All right, last question. Favorite quote or motto?
That's easy. I got the quote when I graduated from the academy from another law enforcement parent, and I got it actually framed right here on my wall. Reminds me every day, selfless service. But It's attributed to Mother Teresa, but it goes, "We the willing, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We've done so much with so little that we can accomplish anything with nothing."
That's a very good quote. I'm gonna have to steal that.
That is what I look at every day, and I read it every day before I went in and put that uniform on to remind me you can accomplish anything with nothing. So stop your complaining and just get it done.
Yeah, because you know what? You can complain all day and nobody cares. You just got to get stuff done. It's just
100%.
reality. Just reality. Well, Cooper, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been
I
fun.
appreciate the opportunity.
Definitely loved your answers, and I think obviously what you shared was very insightful. If people out there want to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to do that?
So 2 ways. OutSolve, just contact OutSolve. Call the main number, OutSolve.com, and they'll find me. My schedule gets a little crazy, so like right now my phone's on Do Not Disturb for the rest of the morning, but please always reach out to us, OutSolve.com. And the other way, I'm actually going to be doing a major presentation at our HR Gumbo this fall.
Yeah, I was hoping you mentioned that.
Yeah, so if you all can, if you want 4 days of understanding affirmative action, record retention, I'm going to put it all together. I'm going to put all 4 days together in one presentation. But the cool thing is at the Higgins Hotel right next to the World War II Museum, and it's 80 years that we stormed the beaches of Normandy. So it's going to be an awesome celebration. So if you're looking to get a little bit of history, enjoy New Orleans, and just take a break from the normal grind, definitely look up our HR Gumbo. It's the best place to be, and I am really excited that I get the opportunity to just be a part of that history.
Awesome. I will be attending that event and looking forward to finally meeting you.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'll get to be in New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans is one of my favorite cities, so I get to be down there like 4 or 5 times this year, which is super cool. So,
Oh, wow.
it's the food. It's the food.
I have shellfish allergies, and I have been so disappointed. I just see everyone smiling when they eat, and they go to this place. I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Ratatouille?
Oh yeah.
Anton Ego, the food critic. He eats the rat. I watched the movie way too much, but he eats the ratatouille, which is what the movie's after, and it takes him to this place.
Yes.
And I kid you not, Shannon, I have. I guess I hope my name's not on a list somewhere, but I have actually gone and just watched people eat because it is the most, to see people in a state of just happiness, it motivates me. And, so yeah, Nolan's the place to come and eat and definitely get a little bit of history. It's a beautiful, beautiful country is what I say. It's got its own rules.
Are you guys going to have an event at the World War II
Shannon,
museum?
don't say the event. We got an event every night.
Oh,
It's going to be phenomenal, and people have passes to we're going to make sure you have time to check out the history. But yeah, we do have an event at the museum, but we're going to have events every night and start trying to lose some weight now because you're probably going to be wearing sweatpants by the final day. We're going to feed you.
well, it sounds like a great event. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully our listeners will be able to join as well. It seems like it's going to be an awesome time down in the Big Easy. So looking forward to that.
There you go.
Well, thanks for joining us
for your
today. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to spending some time with you down in New Orleans here shortly. So,
Hey, who dat? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the DE Talk podcast. Stay connected with direct employers on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or subscribe to receive updates straight to your inbox by visiting directemployers.org/subscribe, where you'll receive notifications of new episodes, webinars, events, and more.